Hi, good evening, and welcome to NerdTalk with the Hoover Public Library, where librarians get to ramble about stuff that we're nerdy about. My name is Sam, and I'll be your host this evening. I'm super excited to introduce you to two of my favorite weirdos here at the library, Madeline and Nicole. Tonight's topic is keeping up with the cryptids, where we will be talking about some of our favorite mysterious critters who may or may not be on, under, around, or near the planet. To get us started, we're going to be talking about what cryptids actually are. Nicole, why don't you get us started with your working definition of what a cryptid is?
Hey y'all, so my understanding of what a cryptid is it is a creature that is believed by many to exist, but technically science does not have enough evidence to verify its existence. So there you have it. It's things that may have once existed that has been proven extinct, but people still claim to see it, or it may be things that everyone claims to see but has never been proven. So there you have it.
Cool. So Merriam-Webster defines a cryptid as an animal, such as Sasquatch or the Loch Ness Monster, that has been claimed to exist but never proven to exist. I would expand on that by saying that there are creatures that I can usually talk myself into believing in. I would agree that it doesn't necessarily include creatures of like spiritual legends, but spiritual legends could be inspired by cryptids or from sightings of cryptids that don't seem to fit with others in a species. I definitely lean more towards humanoid cryptids because why not? Deep sea cryptids also because why not? And dinosaur type remnants who maybe just lived more recently than we give them credit for. After all, how else do you explain alligators and snapping turtles? Because get real. I've always been fascinated and a little terrified by how little we know about the deep sea. I'm definitely an Ancient Aliens believer. I watch that stuff all the time, and I spent all day watching X-Files to get ready for this. I also watched Supernatural all the way through like 3 times. I really like this flow chart that I found online for determining if something is a cryptid or not. Let me see if I can get this up. Bam. So this flow chart is kind of what I've been going by to determine what cryptids I wanted to talk about tonight. And as you can see, it leaves some room for debate there. But okay, Mads, what's your vibe?
So I'm glad that Sam introduced me as one of the weirdos at the library. I like to claim that I'm the biggest weirdo. So it's no surprise that cryptids have always been a topic of interest for me. I've always been a creepy kid, and then I became a creepy adult. So anything dealing with conspiracy theories, things unseen or unbelievable events, I've always been interested in learning more about those things. So to me, a cryptid is any creature that's existence isn't proven despite multiple eyewitness accounts. If there are multiple accounts of it, that one kind of goes up my meter of that might actually be real. And so I love all cryptids equally, but I am absolutely terrified of the water dwelling ones. I don't care if it's in a stream or if it's in the ocean. I'm terrified of it, and I think that the ocean is deep, the woods are dark, the universe is vast, so I'm sure there are many things we've yet to slap a scientific label on.
For sure. I think it definitely feeds into like I don't know if this is all people with glasses, but all people I know who are afraid of the water also wear glasses. And so like I think there's definitely something to like being out in the creepy and just like what is touching me? I don't know. Is it
That
normal?
tracks.
Is it an alien? I don't, we're just doing the best we can. Us glasses wearing people. So we've broken down our favorite cryptids down into 3 categories: local, national, and worldwide. Nicole, why don't you get us started with the Appalachian region?
All right, so can you pull up the slides? Cool. So we decided to go local regional, and since the Appalachian region actually ends around Jefferson County, I thought that'd be a good one. And this is actually a cryptid I had not heard of before until I started doing some research. It is the knot deer. which is described as a normal deer. You're walking, you see a deer, and then something just kind of is a little bit off. Something's not quite right. So sometimes people say it's how they behave, like they're not scared of people. Why aren't you scared of people? We hunt you. And sometimes it's something that looks a little off. And one of the things when I was doing research that people claimed, and I thought was interesting, was that they said that some of the offbeat behavior could be synonymous with something called chronic wasting disease, which for deer, elk, moose, it's similar to mad cow disease. It causes lesions in the brain. And so neurological function leads to loss of body function, atypical behavior, emaciation, eventually death, which is sad. But it's also claimed that in like a group of deer, it's going to be one deer that's acting strangely, but all of the other deers are just like, no, that's fine. He's fine. That's how he always is. So that was one that's just, well, what is it? We don't know what it is, but it's not a deer. And I like that that was one of the reasonings behind it. And to add a little bit of creepy to it, I did some research into CWDs, chronic wasting disease, which Appalachian region. As of this past February, we have just now had 3 confirmed cases in the state of Alabama. So y'all look out. Not deer, CWD, something. It's coming for us.
Man, don't say that. All right, I'm next up with my local cryptid, also in the same area as the not deer. Mine is the Alabama white thing. So anytime I get to employ my really deep Southern accent, it's a good day. So he is our not so friendly local Bigfoot. Eyewitness accounts date back to like actually reported in 1971, but there have been talks and sightings since like the early 1900s. And for me, like I said, multiple eyewitness accounts really, that tells me that this may be real, because all of these sightings of the Alabama white thing have near exact descriptions. So extremely tall, over 8 feet, covered in white fur. They have glowing red eyes. They're very fast, and they emit a high-pitched scream, almost like a woman crying, when they are encountered.
Me too.
When you're encountered in the woods. So really, it's Sam. End of the story. No, but I suspect it probably is some kind of sighting of a bear. And that's what a lot of people are saying, that it's just a misidentified bear, kind of exaggerated. People got scared in the woods. Oh my God, it's the Alabama white thing. But I did some poking into like bears in the state. And I was like, are there any albino bears? But I came across something really interesting about the Kermode bear, or called the spirit bear. And it is a subspecies of the American black bear that has a double recessive genes that make the fur white. So it's not true albino. And we have black bears, or have been known to have black bears here in Alabama. So I was like, maybe one came down here from its home in British Columbia. Who's to say? I'm like, did somebody, did they trade them? Did somebody have it in their backyard petting zoo? Maybe, who knows? But I think probably it was just a local bear sighting that got kind of exaggerated. And we may never know what the real story is, but that's what makes it the perfect cryptid.
So do you think, so usually like a Sasquatch falls into like a primate category, right? And I was looking into it whenever you were talking about this the other night. And so like Central America does have a few wild monkeys, but US and Canada has none. Yeah. So do you think that it's like simian in nature, or do you think it's definitely bear leaning?
I want to believe that it's out there somewhere braiding its long white hair, but I really do think it was a bear. I think it probably was just a mistaken, a lot of these things would be like, oh, a trick of the light or whatever, but glowing red eyes kind of, it made me think of like a trick of the light, the way eyes can look red in some settings. So I really do think it was probably a bear. I want it to be real, but I think it was a bear.
I think that could have been like the title of tonight was like Nerd Talk. I want it to be real. Like I want to believe.
I want it to be real. Also, it could have been a bear. So.
Okay, so let's move on to some of our favorite national cryptids and expand a little bit. So when we say national, we're primarily talking about the continental U.S., though there are definitely some interesting ones hiding out in Alaska and certainly some cool ones hanging out in the Gulf territories and the Pacific Ocean. The Americas kind of captured the imagination of European colonizers, and some of the stuff they saw when they got here was super unfamiliar and strange, but we're mostly going to be talking about modern day cryptids that are still hiding out right outside the periphery. Nicole, I understand your next one is not the kind of bunny rabbit that hands out Easter eggs, right?
Maybe not. You don't know. Got a lot of free time. So, got the jackalope. I actually did not care that much about the jackalope until I found about this wonderful little condition you can see in the middle of this poor little rabbit. But it was back, I think, in 2013, and there was like a Yahoo News article. And they were like, Frankenstein rabbit. I was like, what is Frankenstein rabbit? I must research. And so, jackalope, western cryptid. It is crossed between jackrabbit, antelope. If you ever see taxidermy, usually they use deer antlers because, we're in America and we probably have a lot more deer than antelope hanging out, just saying. But there's a condition that's called, and I have to read it out here because I don't know how to pronounce it otherwise, but it's the papillomavirus, where keratinous, like nails, feathers, stuff, actually causes carcinomas resembling horns. It's usually around the head and the neck area. It is fairly common in rabbits in the wild. So, I mean, I would love for there to be like everyone saying, no, this is such a weird thing, and then everyone is actually like, oh no, this is common. This is normal. Rabbits do that. Didn't you know rabbits did that? Duh. I mean, we're in the East over here, so obviously we wouldn't know what those Western rabbits are doing. But I love the idea that jackalopes are real. It's just a virus. So that's my jackalope and why I love that one.
So I have to confess, I watch a lot of Dr. Pimple Popper because, everybody's got their ASMR thing, I guess. And I've seen a couple where she does these things that actually look like horns on people that are just like, sometimes they're like a cyst that hardens and calcifies or something. And so like, I definitely fall in the category of people who like, why not have horned things everywhere? Because like, especially with mammals, like it's so easy for these weird deposits to add up and then just like look like horns.
Yeah, and unlike the ailment that had the knot deer that I mentioned, this one actually it looks weird, but it doesn't kill them. It's just kind of, here's a weird extra thing. Little Timmy Rabbit's hopping around. He's got a couple of horns. All his friends are just like, hey, where'd you get that done? So until they're taken out by a predator, they're just living with it. So there's no telling how large it could get.
So tell us more about this next guy. So the next one you wanted to talk about was Mothman. I've seen the movie, but I'm gonna let you be the expert on this one.
All right. So first of all, the reason I picked Mothman was because of the merchandise. Just, I love it. Like, there's a Mothman onesie. I just love all of this. Mothman's cool, but just it's the merchandise that got me for this one. But had to do some research, figure out what's going on. So witnessed in Point Pleasant, West Virginia between November 1966 and December 1967. Mothman is described as a large humanoid creature with hypnotic red eyes. He's capable of flight and makes a screeching sound. If you've ever seen the movie The Mothman Prophecies, like Sam just mentioned, you're probably aware that the Mothman was also reportedly seen near the Silver Bridge prior to its collapse. So they say that Mothman, if you see him, it's a bad omen. Did some more research. What do people actually think it is? And they said that a sandhill crane that deviated from its typical migratory patterns is the most likely one, but I'm just sorry, but I think people know what a bird looks like. It is very tall, though. I did not realize that we had a 6 foot tall bird that was just hanging out. Makes me feel good. I don't really have an opinion on this one. Like, there could have been something. It could have been some people driving and seeing a giant bird and not expecting a 6 foot bird flying at them. So I'm up to be persuaded one way or the other on this one.
I think Madeline has a giant bat also, like later in the show here. I definitely, so like bats and birds and large critters, especially the flying variety, kind of freak me out. Like, I'm not about getting plucked up, you know, but
Don't
but
like
I
the water,
definitely
don't like
think
the flight.
yeah, I think with birds and fish alike, I have this phobia because like they can move in dimensions and directions that I have to learn or like have equipment to travel in. So like I don't stand a chance if these guys are real.
Okay.
Mads, you care to weigh in?
Huh?
Do you care to weigh in on Mothman?
Oh, I was just gonna say the same thing, is that anything, you mentioned it could have been a bird flying at a car. I think that, in those moments of fear or your terror, you're more likely to exaggerate what you've seen. So I feel like that could definitely be a case with a lot of these, but probably with Mothman, because he is creepy. Cute but creepy.
So Mads, this next one I hadn't heard of before. Take me on a journey to the exotic land of Iowa.
Iowa. So I actually hadn't heard of this one either. I was struggling on trying to narrow down what my favorite national cryptid was. And I started looking through a book that was like all of the different American cryptids broken down by state. And so when I got to Iowa, I was like, man, this one looks wild. And it's that picture, the black and white drawing. I was like, I need to know more about the Van Meter visitor. Let's just be clear, it's a visitor, because this cryptid story takes place in a coal mining town in Van Meter, Iowa. And most of the sightings were limited to 1 week in October of 1903. Perfect time, for a spooky story. But all accounts throughout the week, they shared the same description, and they were seen by multiple different people throughout the week. And the Van Meter visitor is 9 feet tall. It has black bat-like wings. It has a horn on its forehead, and it emits a beam of light, and it is very, very smelly. So over the course of the week, this description was given every time. The Van Meter visitor terrorized the town. It wasn't phased at when the townsfolk shot at it. Towards the end of the week, a mob of townspeople came together and they chased the visitor, what I'm going to call him, chased the visitor into a mine in the area. And so all of the townspeople converged on that mine. They were shooting at it. It did not matter how many times they shot him. Nothing happened to the visitor. But when they got in the mine, there was a smaller one too. So maybe it was its offspring. Who knows? But they both fled to the bottom of the mine, and then sightings have been pretty sparse ever since. I think this might have to do with some sort of collective memory surrounding an unusual event in the same week. So maybe that was exaggerated. It could have been some kind of bird, an exotic bird that somebody got loose. Who knows? I saw some information about like bioluminescence in birds, and I was like, maybe they saw bioluminescence, and we're like, it's a horn and it's shining a beam of light on us as it's terrorizing our town. Who knows? But my favorite explanation was that it was a bird or some kind of winged distraction to get the townspeople not to look at the UFO activity. So that one, I was like, that's my cryptid. I love it. And they have a festival. So that's the image there is from the festival, and I really want to go. If it has cute merch, a festival, cryptid, I'm ready. I'm here for it.
Do you think this falls in, because like mine's creepy, yes. So I'm thinking of movies like God, what's the one where like the girls are on the spelunking trip?
Oh yeah.
And the Descent, is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So like I'm thinking somewhere between The Descent and Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Yeah.
Like, caves would be a really great way for creepy crawlies. I don't know if I buy into deep earth, but like if there is deep earth, caves would be just like, oh, look, the folly of humans, just Jurassic Parking it up, and then just,
It just came up and it was like, oh man, I'm not sure about Iowa. Go back down into the mine.
Y'all got cheeseburgers here? I'm in. So next, I understand that you've got a pants ghost prepared
Yeah.
out in California.
Yes. It is none other than the Fresno Nightcrawler. I picked the Fresno Nightcrawler as my second favorite national cryptid, much like Nicole said, for the merch. I mean, look at that. The little plush, he's so squishy. I love it. And there have been some great comic adaptations of cryptids, and I thought the Fresno Nightcrawler was cute with its little red high heel shoe on. But the Fresno Nightcrawler was spotted in Fresno, Central California. It was seen on a Fresno resident surveillance footage video in 2007. And ever since, it's popped up in a couple of other places in Central California. But in both instances, on the videos and any pictures you see, it looks like haunted pants. Like in the videos, you see it kind of walking slowly across the yard, and it's white. It has 2 legs and 2 eyes. So yeah, haunted pants is what a lot of people say, or pants that got caught in, a clothesline and waved around. I don't believe that one at all. I'd be more likely to believe haunted pants. But then some people are like, it's an alien, or that it is some sort of floating jellyfish-like creature. But whatever it is, the Fresno Nightcrawler does not really fall into any solid category as far as cryptids go. And that just fascinates me, because a lot of people have varying opinions about it. And it's cute. It's just cute. So it definitely is on my list of like favorite cryptid of all time. So
he is really cute, and I think that it's interesting. So like usually when you see squatches or Loch Ness or whatever, you see them like isolated in their thing, but your guys all have buddies. Like they all have friends with them, and I think that's just adorable. But it also reminds me of like, have you guys seen those videos where people will like put their legs and arms through the arms of a sweater and just like take off running through the house? I wish that I had like the technical abilities to just like drop that video in, because like I will punt a child. Like that is exactly what I think of when I see this little neck wrist guy.
Yeah.
What I like about the center video, if you've ever seen the video, the 2 creatures on there are actually walking at different speeds.
Mm-hmm.
So in my opinion, if it were going to be a hoax, it seems like that would be a lot harder to do than just having one more creature show up instead of trying to do 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So just think that's interesting.
Yeah, and the center video, it also looks like the one that's following behind is like a baby night crawler or something, because like Nicole said, they do go at 2 different speeds, but one of them is definitely like meandering and wanting to do its own thing, and then, oh my goodness, my bigger haunted pants they're leaving me. So you can tell that, there are 2 very different behaviors going on in that video, which, yeah, of course, I would think it was harder to put that into the hoax category, but people do amazing things with videos these days.
I think it just like, it reminds me of like when you follow somebody else's mom at the grocery store. Oh, help, I'm lost.
You look like an adult. Please help me. Yeah, that's what the night crawler's thinking.
Perfect. All right, so let's move on to some global cryptids. When we talk about global, we're talking about planet Earth, where we're broadcasting from. If anybody's tuning in from outside, reach
Welcome.
out. Yeah. We're cool here. If you've ever seen an old school seafaring map like this one, you're probably familiar with the term "here there be dragons," which is my favorite thing in like old pieces of paper. It was pretty common practice to explain away lands or oceans you hadn't explored yet and animals you didn't know about by saying this area here is probably inhabited by something terrifying, and that's why our boats or caravans or whatever aren't coming back. Surely no fault of human. This must be, a creature issue. This is particularly true when it comes to ocean creatures, which are my favies. We know so little about the deep ocean, which is fascinating, but for someone else to explore. Sometimes I scuba dive in my real life, and it's intimidating. I just like do it because I have to kind of deal. But I think that there's definitely an argument for creatures down there that we don't have a super firm grip on. Mm-hmm. The first one that I want to talk about are the sirens, merfolk. So buckle in for a rant. Sightings of creatures believed to be merfolk have been reported as early as humans first began sailing. They appear in the folklore of many cultures, including but not limited to Europe, Asia, and Africa. There are various possible explanations of merfolk. One is that people are mistaking marine animals like seals, dolphins, and manatees. One often discredited theory is the aquatic ape theory, which I just learned about, which is fascinating. So this one isn't very widely accepted, and I kind of get why. I'm not like a believer of this. It was just like cool to read about. But it basically asserts that many of the characteristics that separate humans from other primates could be due to having like a semi-aquatic ancestor, right? Like a amphibious kind of deal. So there's also this really tragic thing that I found about. I didn't include a picture because tragedy. But it's Sirenomelia. It's a rare fetal, also fatal, but primarily fetal, anomaly where your lower limbs are fused together in one appendage, looking like a tail. Could be the source of some mermaid myths. I don't know how common it was whenever mermaid myths first start coming up. You start seeing mermaids as early as like they're in the Iliad, so they go super far back. So the ones that I did want to show you, the first one there is the Fiji mermaid. Fiji mermaid helped to solidify P.T. Barnum's fame in the 1800s, but he was not the first person to like get a hold of this. Fiji mermaids are usually the skeletons of some kind of small ape sewn onto some kind of large fish. They are not cute. This one is particularly gross, and Barnum's was probably just as nasty because it had changed hands from the early 1800s, even, interestingly enough, miraculously surviving a ship sinking. It tripled the attendance for Barnum's American Museum in New York in the 1840s when he purchased it. And then it later went on a tour of the whole country. It ultimately burned up in a fire, tragically, I guess. Still horrible. Some interpretations of mermaids are that there's these super beautiful, like photogenic, angsty teenagers, great singers, luring sailors to their death, just like living the dream, doing the most. But I think if they're out there, which they could be because ocean, deep, spooky, hard to explore, I think they're more of an amphibious deal, like the guy down here from Harry Potter. They're not cute at all whatsoever. They may have vocal ranges, kind of like whales or dolphins. And I think it just makes sense for like an aquatic animal to develop hands to do things with. Most aquatic animals don't, but I think they could totally use them. And when you look at things like whales and dolphins, they have like when you look at the bone structure in the fin, I think it's feasible. What do you guys think about mermaids?
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and say.
No,
wait. Sorry. Oh, I was gonna say I don't think it would be amphibious. I think it would be mammalian because you saw the Fiji mermaid. It has the tail of the fish, and fish swim side to side. But most descriptions of mermaids, they go up and down, which is an aquatic mammalian feature. So I'm going to throw that out there.
I was going to say something similar. I just want it to be like a manatee that got like kelp stuck to its head and had some type of little starfish all over its body. Like that's what I want. I want it to be a pretty manatee. I don't need a mermaid. I need a cute dressed up manatee. That's what I want.
It's funny that you say manatee because Christopher Columbus, so like by the time Columbus goes on his gallivant through the world transporting flus and other such epidemics, mermaid myths were already like pretty solid, and he wrote this letter, and I wish I would have written the quote down, but he wrote this letter back to Spain, and he was like, hey, so listen, I found mermaids, but I have really bad news. They are not cute. They are not singers. They are amorphously large, and they don't seem to be able to dive very well. And he was talking about manatees. And so like there's a lot to, I'll rant about colonizers later. But yeah, like totally. They just like saw a manatee and they were like, we know what that is. And the locals were like, actually, and he was like, shut up. Like, just like enjoy these flu blankets and we're just going to move on. Cool. So I've shown my hand when it comes to Columbus. So moving right along. Next is another deep sea creature. This one falls under the category that was in the flowchart earlier of should be extinct, but maybe it ain't. So the Meg is a Cenozoic creature. They're only kind of known by their recovered teeth because of the nature of shark skeletons, right? Because cartilage breaks down faster than bone. So the teeth that they've picked up lead researchers to believe that the jaws were big enough to swallow elephants whole. Which is, yeah, Madeline's shaking her head because like she's just as terrified as I am. So there have been a few alleged modern day sightings of megalodons, often by fishermen. These stories are often discredited as being great whites or basking sharks. But like Nicole was mentioning earlier, people would probably know the difference between something the size of this basking shark shown up top with a scuba diver, for reference, or this great white, which is literally, that's Jaws. Like everybody knows Jaws. And surely fishermen would know these things because they're fairly common. Here is a photo from a recent trip. Now, I would like to discredit my image with the researchers from earlier. I am not the size of an elephant. However, this is from my recent trip to the American Museum of Natural History in New York, where they have this really cool sharks exhibit going right now. And right when you walk in, there is this Meg. What do you call it? Like a recreation, imagination? I don't know. what to call him, but he's really dope. And he's big enough to feed my thalassophobia, which is the fear of deep water and the creatures living inside of it.
Mark that down.
Yeah, it's a total thing that you can be treated for, but I choose not to. Megs have also made their way onto the silver screen fairly recently. The movie The Meg is based on a book by Steve Alton that I think is done super convincingly, to a terrifying degree, and I screwed up and watched it on an IMAX dome. Do not recommend if you are a thalassophobic individual. What do you guys think about these dinosaur sharks?
I actually really love sharks. So I would be okay with that existing as long as I did not go in the water. I tell people all the time, if my number one bucket list thing to do is go down in a dive cage and go like be around sharks. But I can tell you right now, if I went down in a dive cage and anything remotely like the Meg came near me, it would in fact be a bucket list item, because I would have left my body at that point. Because I think, like you said before, the ocean is deep. And I fully believe that there are things, down there that probably are this size. Absolutely.
Sam, have you read The Meg, the book?
Okay, so bad librarian moment. I have not read The Meg or Jurassic Park, but I have watched them to a disturbing degree.
Okay, so background info, because I'm going to bring Steve Alton up again when we talk about Nessie. He goes into some Michael Crichton level descriptions of why this science would make sense. Highly recommend you go back and read it. The part where, hey, this is how the Meg has survived all this time. Also, this is how it could escape and come back to the surface. Spoilers. But it's just very well done. I'm not going to try to replicate what he said because I would just butcher it. But very well done. Also saw the movie, but the book, yes. Librarian moment.
I feel like there are an increasing, this starts out and we're like, hey, we're normal people. And then by the end, it's like, oh yeah, we're librarians and we have resources. And we're also kind of conspiracy theorists. And we had a little too much time to plan this thing. And so
really,
tinfoil hats.
I was about to say, I'm upset that I left my tinfoil hat at home because I got a couple of them. True story.
All right, Nicole, I've got you up next. This is a zebra dog.
Sure. Okay, let me go ahead and correct everything you've just said. All right, so this, I'm going to go ahead and say, was my first experience with a cryptid, and so just love it. This is how it started. All right, looking at the picture at the top with its mouth wide open, this is actually a predatory marsupial that did exist. This was proven. There are photos. There's a short video of it. It had the last confirmed animal die back in 1936. It was declared officially extinct in 1982. There are still current sightings. So it is a marsupial. If you'll look at the lower left-hand image, a marsupial is defined as an animal that births, the kids they're only half baked, so they go back in the pouch. North America, think of the possum. There you go. But it looks like a dog, and a lot of the original colonizers, as Sam calls people, but I mean, it's true. Okay, but it's actually not a dog. It's a marsupial, and it has a very stiff tail, similar to a kangaroo. Sightings are in Tasmania. They are not in Australia any longer. Its mouth could open 80 degrees. That's ridiculously crazy extreme. It was called the Tasmanian tiger because of the stripes running down its back. You can see that. I did a little bit of research. People have submitted videos of them to try to say, hey, here's what it is. A lot of debate going on. It's about the same size as a lot of other animals in that area. So there's a lot to be confused with. There's always the hope, though. So that being said, one of my main reasons for hope for this, there is the Australian night parrot. It hadn't been seen since 1912. And then in 1990, there was a specimen found. It was found by someone hitting it with a car, but it was found. So I'm like, that's such a long time. I'm like, it's not that much longer. So this is my number one animal I want to be real, y'all. Like, no lie. This is it. Okay. My fangirl moment.
It's actually interesting that you bring up like animals that we thought were extinct but weren't. So did you know the crested gecko, who I should have put a picture in of, he is a really cute little dude. They sell them in pet stores, but they really shouldn't. They're also known as an eyelash gecko. So they're native to southern New Caledonia in like the France area. So they thought that they were extinct for like a super long time, right? They're adorable. They're like yay big. They have sticky feet, and they thought that they were totally gone. And then this hurricane comes through the area and wipes out all the trees. And all of a sudden, these geckos are like coming out of people's outlets and stuff because like their natural habitat was just wiped out. So like they thought that they were extinct, and now all of a sudden they are everywhere. They're super adorable. Their bites don't really hurt. We used to have one at like a place that I used to work, and you know, they're really good jumpers. They're tree livers. They like to eat a lot of bugs and stuff, but they're crested geckos. They're super adorable. But yeah, they definitely thought they were extinct, and it turns out that they just like were hiding because that's what animals do. Cool. So the next one is probably the most famous. I'm going to let Nicole school us about Nessie.
All right, here we go, y'all. The big one, literally. Okay, so most famous picture we have, it's the surgeon's photograph. It's in the middle right there, as y'all can tell. So it has been said to be a hoax now, that it was a toy submarine and some wood putty to make the neck and head and everything. It's been so long ago. There are a lot of people that agree with that. There are a lot of people that disagree with that. I think it's pretty much too late to say one way or the other for that particular photo. Some of the more recent research, though, and I love falling back on research. I'm just like, science can prove or disprove things. Also, they can just confuse us substantially. 1987, there was a sonar search done, and there was another sonar done in 2003. First search resulted, they said there were large sections of debris at the bottom of the loch, and there was motion seen in 3 of the images, which I'm like, oh my gosh, it's real. But then in 2003, new search, new equipment, no evidence of any large animals within the loch at all. So that's the sonar. We're doing the best. For y'all that don't know, the loch is ginormous. It's not like an American lake. It is huge. So this is an enormous task. So 2018, fairly recently in the grand scheme of things, DNA survey was performed in the water. The DNA showed no evidence of large fish. This includes like sharks, like the biggest of fish. There is nothing there. There was no otters, no seals, a lot of eel DNA. Now, remember I was talking about Steve Alton? Okay, so he has one called the Loch, and he suggests that the Loch Ness monster is actually a mutated eel. And I was like, well, dang, how big do the eels get? I think one was reported up to 18 feet long. So maybe not as crazy as it could be. Once again, I love the research he does into everything. So, but I was just like, okay, eels, the Loch Ness monster is eels. But then I had to do some history in addition to my science because, you know, in for a penny, in for a pound. So largest number of sightings reported, they were back in the 30s. And this got me thinking, that was 90 years ago, y'all. Okay, what if we shouldn't have the question, is the Loch Ness monster real, but was the Loch Ness monster real? Like, what if it was a very small group that got trapped? It was the last of its kind. It was one animal that just randomly appeared. A bunch of people saw it. It was reported because there's a huge number of eyewitness reports. There's a website you can submit your eyewitness report on. You can go back and look at everyone else's. But I think they had to have seen something. Like, just something had to have been there. There has to be. So my question is, like, was it an incredibly rare native species? Maybe a singular specimen? Was it a peculiar natural phenomenon? This is a great mystery. Like, I don't think we're ever going to have the answer, but I love the mystery itself. And if I went to Scotland, I would do like Loch Ness monster tours and everything else in the world. Like, I don't think I would actually see anything, but I would totally do it all. Just everyone's in agreement with me because everything's still happening. But that was my research on Loch Ness monster.
What do you think of? So I've read some theories that like maybe the Loch Ness monster was like a plesiosaur. So I'm hard on this like dinosaurs among us thing lately because of my trip to the Natural History Museum. What do you think about it being a plesiosaur?
Would love for it to be a plesiosaur. Another one of those last of its kind of situations. But like, like some large animal. But also dinosaurs. I would love to have a Dragon Ball Z moment and just dinosaurs are still hanging out everywhere. That would be great.
So we've got somebody in the comments talking about Champy. Have you heard about Champy? You may not have to go as far as Scotland to do this one. So Lake Champlain is a body of fresh water shared by New York and Vermont, with a portion extending to Quebec. And Champy is a lake monster. The pictures look really similar to the Loch Ness monster. So maybe we've got, with continental drift and different things like that, like maybe these things were connected by an ocean at some point, and like plesiosaurs just got stuck in the, who knows, could be. You said no bones, but like,
I'm out here raising my hand like Hermione Granger in class. Actually, no, it's not just Champy and Nessie. Like when I was reading the book about the cryptids in every state, any of them that have a bigger body of water, even if it's just a lake, chances are they have their own version of, the Loch Ness monster, which for me, again, multiple eyewitness reports. If you have this same type of creature all over the world, facts, it's real.
See, and I should have added this one into local, but I wasn't sure if it was weird enough. So I am from Walker County, Alabama, and we have Smith Lake there. And when I was growing up, there was always this thing that they would say that there were catfish as big as Volkswagens in Smith Lake, which if your mom drives a Honda Odyssey, no big deal. My mom drove a Volkswagen. And so I knew that a Volkswagen can hold 2 car seats, a Labrador Retriever, and 2 full-grown adults, and all their camping gear because we were hippies. So, like, I grow up hearing about these things. And then, like, whenever I see pictures of fishermen holding up, giant items from a lake, I immediately jump to, like, oh, my God, they're in Jasper. Like, But yeah, I don't know. Lakes creep me out. Freshwater fish are so mean. Like I used to work as an aquarist and taking care of different animals, and like our saltwater animals, there was a moray eel I took care of, and he could not care less when I was in his tank. Like he was 6.5 feet long, and he would just kind of like chill and squiggle around and maybe like curiously look at me. But our freshwater animals were like trying to take chunks out of my suit and like taking my tools away. And, they didn't care if you like, is that metal? I don't care. I'm gonna eat it, So freshwater animals, definitely spoopy. Cool. So next up, Madeline is going to take us to the Bat Cave.
Okay. Creepy kid. I love all things that go bump in the night. I love bats. I didn't even realize it. I have my little bat on my badge reel. Totally did not even plan that. But this thing, I'm sorry. If the Ahul came anywhere near me, I would pass out. It was first spotted in 1925 on the island of Java. Eyewitness accounts say that it has a monkey-like face and body red eyes, which I don't know what is up with the red eyes. I guess it's to make it more terrifying. Red eyes, a wingspan that varies depending on the account. Y'all, one of the eyewitness accounts said that the wingspan was 28 feet. Absolutely not. So this one made my list simply for the fact that it is terrifying, and I think that it probably does exist. The name comes from the loud ahool noise it makes. It's like this blood-curdling screech. And it was heard by, I think it was somebody who was studying birds in the area, and he saw it, and then he heard it. And so all of these accounts, they tend to be around that time in 1925. I'm wondering if it's some thought to be extinct, like a pterosaur, or maybe it's like a flying primate, but most people believe that it's a misidentified megabat, which are real. I think my eyesight's really terrible. I think that center picture is actually, it's a man, and then it's like a megabat, and what the ahool is the size that the ahool has been reported as, and that really, really greatly upsets me. I think it probably existed, but I'm wondering if like deforestation has something to do with why we're not seeing this type of extra megabat anymore, because that's a real thing, deforestation in general, but especially on the island of Java. So it was seen in the rainforests. So maybe, I don't know, like Sam's little lizard thing. I hope they don't, if that thing came out of my wall socket, deceased. But I think it's real. I think that one's real. As terrifying as it is, that one's the real one.
I definitely think that like man bat grabbed my imagination. When I was a kid, I was a big Spider-Man kid, like the 90s and the guitar solo Spider-Man. And like Morbius in the cartoon, horrifying, like absolutely terrifying. Like, what if some of these cryptids are like, I don't know, I don't want to stray into like conspiracy territory, but like government experiments, like, anyway, I digress. Okay, so take me back into the ocean for a second. I had not heard of this one before you mentioned it. What is this horrifying blob?
So that is an engine. It is a huge whale-like creature that has been spotted in extremely cold, like Antarctic waters. It looks like a whale. It has pale skin, it's blubbery. It is very, very big, and it has humanoid features. You can see it on the top right one. It has these big eyes. It has like a mouth slit. But the worst part about it is that it has arms and legs, and the arms have little hands on them. This cryptid is fairly new. Online communities seem to think that the creature is a simple case of misidentification, be it a whale. Some say it could be a manta ray. I've seen some reports say that it's an iceberg, and I think that's the top left picture from Google Earth. They were like, oh, we finally got it on Google Earth, and it might just be an iceberg. But these have been cited or like seen in like the really cold areas of water. They're about the size of a blue whale, but they look like a beluga whale. And I watched a video earlier. It was a diver like taking a video of an enormous octopus, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Why is this a ninja video. Oh, okay, there it is. And it starts like creeping up from the bottom and just comes at the camera. And I was like, I don't like that. And I turned it off. But it looked a lot like that the top right image. And it was upsetting. And the middle picture is what it looks like from the top of the water. When people usually when they report the sightings, of course, they see it at the surface, but then it goes back down into the water because it is also, it seems innocuous, and it seems like it's very easily frightened, and it's nocturnal in nature. So then that adds to the complications of getting a good shot of the ninja. So it was a new one to me. It's, I think, like the late 90s, early aughts were when the documents were when it was like actually reported. But of course, as we've mentioned, these things have probably been seen since people started sailing. So it was a new one to me, but I thought it was cool enough to add to my list of favorites on the international level.
2 thoughts.
Yeah.
What if this is our mermaid?
I was thinking that when
too.
but I didn't want to say it. So that was another thing is all of them said that, they had these humanoid characteristics, but the one thing that was a little bit different was they were saying, well, it's not legs, it's more of a singular, tail that kind of splits off. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's a mermaid. I don't know what to think of this, but I watched that video of it just kind of looming into the foreground, and suddenly I was no longer scared of the octopus. Let's just say that.
Second theory, looks like a spaceship.
Don't get me started. I said I left my tinfoil hat at home. I'm not discussing aliens. That is an entirely different nerd talk that we can do at a later time.
There was this movie that we watched not too long ago that was its whole deal is that there's like, God, I can't remember the name of the movie, but it's like they're underwater exploring this like source of light that's coming up from underneath, and it's aliens. It's underwater aliens, and like if up next on Nerd Talk, we'll talk about aliens, I guess.
It'd be great.
Cool.
Are we out of time?
We are getting really close. We're getting super close. We are at our allotted, so we're just going to wrap some things up here. So I'd like to talk about some of these folks who were once thought to be cryptids. Everything you see here is an actual real animal. Now, as I've mentioned and borderline ranted upon, explorers and colonizers used to be really bad about slapping names on animals that the locals already totally knew about. One of the most famous cases of mistaken identity was the Christopher Columbus mermaid, right? I didn't include a picture of a manatee because, like, I didn't want to poke fun at the poor thing. My favorite out of these is, of course, the narwhal. Narwhal sightings are pretty rare because they're deep sea animals. You can't have them in captivity because they live in bunches. They're pretty big. They need a lot of pressure. And also they get depressed, which is a really sad thing that some ocean critters do. And it's a sad thing. But there was a time when their horns are like washing up on oceans and people are looking at that going, I bet that's a unicorn. And they're selling them at markets as unicorn horns. Which is, I guess it kind of makes it horrible, yes, but I can see where the logic is there. And when you look at a platypus or like most creatures from Australia, they definitely looks like something out of a legend with their giant spiders and everything. But the marsupial pouch, poisonous bite, beaver tail, duck bill, the whole deal, like he's just cobbled together. Like until I meet one, I'm not convinced about platypus. And then there are several examples here of stuff that people have found in the ocean and come back with wild stories, like giant squids This big fish guy here is an oarfish. They're calling those sea serpents for the most part. Since we are a clan of librarians, I think it's only fair for us to wrap up with some resources and recommendations. Nicole, I trust that you've got some recommendations for documentaries.
All right. I had to print these out because there were too many. Let's see. Here we go. So, let's see. Got several TV series. They're docu-series you found back when, like National Geographic used to have things besides crab wrangling and such. Extinct or Live television series has the Tasmanian tiger down under, and they had the special, the Tasmanian tiger. This is what, that was the one. That's what started it all. There's a In Search Of. It had multiple episodes for things. They had Man Beast, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, the Ogopogo Monster, which I think was mentioned in the chat or the comments, because I only just now figured out we have comments. Yeah. Swamp Monsters, Monster Hunters, Abominable Snowman, and then Is It Real is another docuseries that had Bigfoot, Lake Monsters, Chupacabra, which we didn't talk about. Maybe we should have. Forgot about him. 8-Man, and then the Russian Bigfoot, the last living caveman. So those are some pretty good ones.
Sweet. I would add to that list lots of fictional type things. I've mentioned Supernatural and X-Files already. I'm a big fan of the Fantastic Beasts franchise. I'm also really into Siren, which is a really cool show. They have ugly mermaids, and I like that. And they're like warrior queens. It's very empowering. Yeah, and also I think Jurassic Park could count, even though they're like manufactured or whatever. But all right, Madeline, lay on me some.
So I have 2 books that I read while we were doing all the research for this. One of them was Chasing American Monsters, and the other one is The United States of Cryptids. And both of those are available at your local library, along with some really cool cryptid board games if you want to have fun while you're learning. We have Cryptid, Campy Creatures, and Horrified American Monsters, and those are all available for checkout at the Hoover Public Library.
Shameless plug. I love it. Well, folks, that is all the time that we have for Nerd Talk this evening. Be sure to keep an eye on the Hoover Library for more nerdy events, because after all, we're more than just a library. Until next time, stay nerdy.